This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast. Thank you so much. However you found it, I'm greatly appreciative. Joining me today, my cousin, Adam the Jock Strozinski. I'm John Macaroon. What's up, cuz? What's going down?
Hey, how was Bra?
It was unbelievable. You know what? Listen to this week's Doc and Jock Wrestling podcast. Drops every single Friday, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. But the part I want to leave you with was...
Dude, your face was all over it.
It was great.
It was nuts.
I always want to do certain things in terms of entertainment, and one of the things on the bucket list is sit up front and have a good time at a wrestling event. Boom, 39th birthday, got an opportunity to call in a favor, and I got first row seats at Monday Night Raw. And I'm going to recap it all on this week's Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. You know, the fun things with security, how much fun I did have in terms of trying to see where the cameras were and watching all the things that were going down on Monday Night Raw. But the part that I want to leave you with was great is that knowing in the show, if you watched it, they pan back after this first segment. Roman Reigns walks back, and in the back room there is Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon. So you know that they're watching everything that's going on. So you know me, egomaniac, I'm getting a thrill of a lifetime. I'm riding a high this week knowing that during the John Cena promo and during the Alexa Bliss promo, for a brief, maybe 4 or 5 seconds, Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon had me in my NWO shirt glaring at them in their eyeballs. And either they're thinking, who's this tool? Or like, dude, yes, another NWO cat. Dude, awesome, great stuff. But knowing that a billionaire and his son are staring at the monitor and they're going camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. And all of a sudden you got this idiot with his hands raised, all trying to get up in the camera behind these promos. It was awesome to think about. I had a good time. In the end, some people had some strong criticisms about Monday Night Raw, and I'll get into that on Friday, but I had a good time because I went into it. It's my birthday weekend. I was in a good mood. I kicked back some Bud Light Limes, and when you're in a good mindset and you're in a good spot with everything going on in terms of looking at what we did with this network, the practice, the kids, 39 years old, lucky to be here, and so I went into it with a blessed and an appreciative mindset. I had a good time, so from the moment my ass hit the chair, I was in a good mood, and I was looking forward to it, so I had a great time Monday Night Raw, Little Caesars Arena. It was fun.
Awesome. So, guy talk. Out of all the women that were there, because you got to see a lot of the different WWE women superstars, who's the hottest?
Mandy Rose, by
hands
far,
down,
hands down. She probably doesn't need all that makeup. She just looks really good. Alexa Bliss, in terms of the total package with attitude, swagger, I really appreciate her look and the way that she did, you know, the way she performed and the way she was kind of trying to troll Nia Jax. It was fun to see her up front with the belt around her waist. It was really cool. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I know you have some strong, you know, feelings toward the lady that does the interviews. She was pretty much rocking too, that black outfit. She was nice.
Oh, was it Charlie?
Whatever her name is,
Charlie,
yeah.
wadaver.
She does mess up quite a bit, but she does.
She's not good at her
but
job.
her outfit,
she looks good.
Some parts of her body got my attention.
Even Dasha, who's on SmackDown, she even looks good. They're just like mindless drones. They're not good at what they do. That's all. But so it goes Mandy Rose, then Alexa Bliss.
And then Charlie.
It
was good.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. What about for a cougar? Is Mickie James still holding it together?
You know what was funny?
She got better abs than both of us.
You know what Andrea noticed? And she was like, it's kind of interesting in that she's like, Mickie James is in shape differently compared to Asuka. She's like, Asuka looks a little bit flabby. And I'm like, look, you know, so you can't have, you know, everyone be a bodybuilder, but Mickie James, and I'm like, yeah, she's almost 40 years old.
Hard body.
She's muscular. And Andrea noticed it from our vantage point. She's like, wow, good for Mickie James.
Yeah.
You know, good stuff in terms of the workout. But yeah, the one thing I can say is when you sit close and you see, wow, on television, these physiques are unbelievable, but when you're right there and you see the likes of Finn Balor, Seth Rollins...
Dude, Finn Balor's abs got abs.
It's unbelievable, the level of fitness that they got going on. But there's some tricks. that I'll share that what they do during these commercial breaks that makes sense in terms of how they can go and keep that fast pace of wrestling on television. Interesting stuff. Yep. So it was awesome. I can't wait to record this podcast. Lots going on in Detroit sports.
Jam-packed show today.
Lots to get to. The NFL season is now officially open. 2018 free agents are signing everywhere but Detroit. It seems like early on. We'll talk about what you guys think regarding what's going on with Detroit. Are they really kind of laying back and going out there and just filling needs, or are they maybe going to make a splash later on? Second segment, we got to talk about the NCAA tournament. March Madness is here. You all are filling out your brackets. We want to know. Join us in our Detroit Sports Podcast Listener Challenge. You can win prizes. Get yourself on the air here with the Detroit Sports Podcast with Doc and Jock. Plug whatever you want. You can come on, be a guest. You can tell everybody how you filled out your bracket and what your strategy was. This is the third year of us doing it, and look out there. There's no one else giving you great prizes similar to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And then we got to talk about it. Something's going on with the owner of the Pistons. You know, when he comes out and he's at the arena, obviously it's kind of interesting when you look at the way he presents himself, but each of the last couple times he spoke to the media, something's going on. Maybe we'll play the interview that he gave to Jennifer Hammond and things like that, and we'll go, the way he talked to the Hammer was a little bit interesting, and we got to pick apart, maybe do some speculating regarding, this dude altered? Is this dude coming to the stadium not in the right mindset?
Is he altered?
You know what? You got a psychologist here at the podcast, and my spidey senses are kicking. I think yours are too, so we'll do that at the end of the podcast. But free agency started, and I know fans kind of, and I'm the same way too, you start looking around and you go, wow, Kirk Cousins got a guaranteed contract. Wow, Richard Sherman was on the market. Did he come to Detroit for the visit? Didn't even come to Detroit to visit with the Lions. He signed with the first place that gave him a decent offer with the 49ers. You're starting to see some running back sign across the league, and you go, okay, the Lions made some moves. You go, who? A Kennard? Another one? You hear that name and you go, no, we don't want a Kennard. We don't want another linebacker. And so you go, oh, early on, day one, in terms of the day before the actual free agents could sign, and you go, is that what they did? No, they didn't make a splash just yet. They've signed some guys to add some depth to the linebacking core, and that's fine because you know what? The way I look at it is if you wanted to go out and get the likes of a Jerick McKinnon running back, you want to go out and get some of these guys, they're offering big money for these guys that probably aren't going to get you the return you need. And so I'm like, you know what? If you go out there and you just chip away at depth and you get some guys that fill a need, I'm okay with getting, if you want to use the star method, getting some 3-star guys that you coach up. You know what I mean? I don't need to go out there and get the 5-star guy that wants all the big money because it's the Lions. You know what I mean? And for anybody that's out there, you know, and you fans that listen to the podcast, you know, most of the time, if you want to bring in somebody here, you got to drastically overpay a la Blake Griffin to come here. You know, you traded for him, and look, you got a guy you traded for and make it $35 million, nowhere near worth it. And so I'm okay right now with the way Bob Quinn's handled free agency. Look for depth, and I don't need a Reggie Bush. I don't need a big splash. I don't need a big-name dude. As long as my faith in the coaching staff is there, and you can bring in guys that are going to fit your system, whoever the names are, I'm hoping become irrelevant. You don't need Richard Sherman. You don't even need Malcolm Butler. For that price that they got, the Tennessee Titans, let him go. Let him go to Tennessee. Let him eat up their cap space. You have a guy now in Darius Slay that's making less and doing more. So I'll take it. And so I don't need the big splash. I think that in lieu of overpaying for free agents, I'm all good, baby. Let's get to the draft, hit home runs there. Because if you have a draft in year 3 like you did in year 2, then we're going to light this microphone on fire.
I think the one thing you can take out of this early free agency period is the Lions are doing things a little bit different. They're not going in, they're not getting that big name guy. They're not spending a ton of money. They're trying to invest wisely. The guys that they sat there and that they've either re-signed or that they've gone out and picked up, they're versatile players. A lot of it's all on defense right now, which is good, which is real good, because that's probably the one area that is most concerning, I think, to all Lions fans is that defense. They've got a ton of holes on that defense. They're addressing them. And I think what you're seeing is we might see a scheme change here. By going out and adding the linebackers that they've added, by adding a Kennard and adding Jones, you might see them switch to a 3-4. And what might end up happening is Ziggy Ansah might drop back. He might be your new outside linebacker. I think it's Jones will be your inside linebacker along with Davis. Remember the rookie from last year. And then you've got Kennard, who looks like he can possibly play on the outside as well. So you might be switching to a 3-4. Now, if you do switch to a 3-4, there's huge concerns with that because you don't have a nose tackle. You don't have anybody who can clog up that middle. That's why I thought it was imperative that you go out and you bring Haloti Ngata back. Now, there are guys out there that you can go out and you can add, but so far the Lions haven't talked to any of them. At least it hasn't been reported that they've talked to any of these guys who can clog up the middle for you. And I think that's where my biggest concern is. There's all these moves going on, and guys are kind of flying off the shelves like hotcakes here, but the Lions haven't addressed a major need, and that's right there in the middle of that defensive line. You know, we don't have any edge rushers, and there aren't really any good edge rushers out there in this free agency class. So try to beef up that defensive line. And if you're going to go to a 3-4, like I'm speculating that you are, you need to go out there. You need to figure out who that nose tackle is. Who's that guy who can clog up the middle? Because I think Ashawn Robinson on the outside will be just fine. He'll be just fine as a D lineman in a 3-4. But you need somebody to sit there and fill that middle and clog up that gap, and they've not done that yet. Also, I was hoping that they'd go out there and maybe address a running back. You know, there's reports coming out that the Lions are looking at guys like a DeMarco Murray, Frank Gores coming in. Jonathan Stewart's already been here, and he's gone and signed somewhere else. Do you want the Lions to bring an older running back like this in?
See, many people are really looking at, okay, what are you going to do with the running back position? I mean, Jonathan Stewart signed somewhere else. I mean, I think you have an opportunity to look at maybe a Frank Gore. As long as the price is right, you can go get a guy. I mean, most people look at LeGarrette Blount as a guy maybe that can come in and be the red zone guy. But I think I'm happy with how the fans have received this because once the news was made a little bit that the Detroit Lions might have DeMarco Murray in or they might want to visit with him, they said, dude, really? You don't need a 30-year-old running back here. Go out there in a deep 2018 running back class. You don't really even need to address it in free agency. You just need to go out there. And I would be happy if you just look at it. If you improve the offensive line 15% and you roll out there with just running backs of Tion Green and Theo Riddick, I'm okay with that, as well as going out there and drafting 2 running backs. There's nothing wrong with that. You got 2 veterans, 2 guys that have been in your system that are going to continue to be in your system.
You're okay with investing everything. Like your entire run game is going to be predicated on whoever that rookie running back is that you bring in. Because Theo Riddick is what Theo Riddick is. Like we all know, he's your change of pace guy. He's not an every down back. And Tion Green's not an every down back either. So you're okay with investing in whoever that rookie running back is. So you've got to pin your entire hopes and dreams for this Lions run game on at number 20, Darius Geis is there. That's basically what you've got to do. And you're okay with that. Now, there's no guarantee that Darius Geis is going to be there at 20. And there's no guarantee that he's going to pan out and be this awesome running back or be this guy who can give you 2, maybe 3 downs, when you've got the ball. You know, there's no guarantee there that he actually works out. But you're okay with investing and going that direction, going that route.
I'm okay with that, 100%.
See, I'm a little bit nervous about that. Now, the reason why I'm nervous is there was a running back out there that I wanted the Lions to sit there, just have a conversation with the guy, see if he wants to come here, see where his head's at, and that was Carlos Hyde. I think Carlos Hyde could have came in here, and he could have been your running back. He could have been your starter going into the season, and you allow your rookie running back. If Darius Geis is there, you pick him up, and you plug him in, and you let him do his job. And if he can supersede Carlos Hyde, okay, cool. You know, you can give Hyde a contract to where you could cut him next year if you really wanted to, and it'd probably cost you a little bit against the cap, but it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Bringing in a guy like a DeMarco Murray, an aging veteran, a guy who is now going to be on his 3rd team, and had trouble adjusting to an offense, he has to have a certain type of blocking scheme for him to be effective. And you want to bring him in, or you're thinking about bringing him in. So unless you're totally revamping your entire offensive line, which I believe they are, but you're going to have to completely adjust it to complement what DeMarco Murray does. I've got concerns there. Frank Gore I don't want. Frank Gore has basically been a corpse for a couple years now. You know, I mean, you had him on your fantasy team last year, didn't you? Mm-hmm. I mean, Jesus Christ, did you want him?
No.
No, you sat there and you cussed me out about it. And he was the best player available when I got him for you. But anyways, you didn't want him on your fantasy team, so why do you want him here on your football team? You don't. Right. And there's really nobody else out there at this point that's really worth a damn. I mean, Darren Sproles isn't going to do it for you. LeGarrette Blount, we all know what he is. Do you want Adrian Peterson? Is he a guy that you'd go out there and you take on the cheap? I mean, he's a power back that can't catch the football. And this is a game now where your running back has to be able to catch the football.
It's one of those things where you look at the running back position, and I think that as Lions fans, we're just wondering how are you going to address it? And I think one of the big factors is by announcing that a roster spot is going to be taken up by Amir Abdullah. It just goes to show you more of the same we don't want. We don't want more of the same. We want changes, sweeping changes to that running back core. And like I said, I'd be happy with a Tion Green and a Theo Riddick, and then you improve the offensive line. And then you look at the class that's out there in free agency. Jerick McKinnon seriously goes to the 49ers. What's that going to do?
$30 million too.
Right. So, and then the big splashes obviously are the quarterbacks. It's kind of interesting that. What did you make of Kirk Cousins going over to Minnesota? You scared at all? Any concern?
I'm not concerned. Here's the thing. I really like the Kirk Cousins deal. I like the deal for Kirk Cousins, and I like it for the players.
Start the process of getting guarantees.
This is the first time that you ever had a fully guaranteed contract, and especially in this dollar amount, $87 million. Now, I think Kirk Cousins going to Minnesota, it makes the Minnesota Vikings a better team. I don't know if it makes them substantially better. Now, Case Keenum played out of his mind last year. He played an exceptional brand of football for a season, 14 games to be exact. I don't know if Kirk Cousins going there makes them that much better, makes them heads and tails above the Lions, above the Packers, and above the Bears. I think they're better, and I think what they have there, they have a really good offensive line. They've got 2 wide receivers that are exceptional, and they've got a running back who looks special if he can rebound from his ACL injury. All right, but again, he's got to rebound from that. And then they do have a very fierce defense on the other side of the ball. So I think they have a good team there. I think Kirk Cousins can win you a Super Bowl or get you to the Super Bowl. I don't know if he'll be the sole reason you win one. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
He's not in the tier of an Aaron Rodgers, a Drew Brees. I think Matt Stafford's better than Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? So I like what Kirk Cousins has done, though. I think he is doing something for the players. He's moving that bar. He's working on getting something done that I think all the players want. They all want that guaranteed contract. If it goes this way, where we're going to start seeing guaranteed money for players, you're going to end up looking at a salary cap that's going to be, they're going to have to do something with the salary structure. It's going to have to be changed. It's going to have to evolve. And I think that's good for the National Football League.
Do you look at it like a big diss that Richard Sherman, when he had a chance to maybe, survey the landscape, go visit a couple teams, just went to San Francisco and was like, boom, I'll take the $5 million signing bonus. I'll take the incentives up to about $39 million and I'll just go there? Because I kind of look at it like, okay, you didn't have to. I would assume that if you want to give the 49ers the agreement, like, look, I think I like the deal here, boom, keep it, and then I just want to make sure that I go somewhere else and look and see what's out there, that I don't think another team was probably going to match it, but at least go out there and see. And then for the Lions not even to be able to get the interview, kind of raised my eyebrows and said, man, you can't even get an interview with Richard Sherman? Or do you feel like, you know what, the 49ers said, you're our guy, you're not leaving, sign this deal or it's off the table? And I feel like maybe that's what the 49ers could do to make the dude sign it, but I feel like, man, if you're Richard Sherman, you probably aren't going to get better, but for the Lions not to even interview him, you think like a diss at all?
No, not at all. And here's why. Because Richard Sherman plays a certain style of defense. That's what makes him effective. That's what makes him a really good player. He has to play in a certain style in order to be the most effective guy on the field. So I don't necessarily, it doesn't bother me that he didn't come here. I'm okay with it. But you have to look a little bit deeper. So Richard Sherman's from Compton, California. He went to college in Stanford. The guy, all he knows is the West Coast. He right out of college, he went to Seattle. He's basically moving down the road to go to San Francisco. He's moving like 3.5 hours, 4 hours south to go to San Francisco. He's still in his essentially in his neighborhood or in his comfort zone. I think that he wanted to go to the 49ers the whole time. I think he's comfortable on the West Coast. I think he's comfortable in California. He's comfortable playing there. I think the only other place that you could have seen him possibly go and that he'd have sat there and jumped all over it was probably Oakland. And that would probably have been it. Maybe the Rams. Maybe the Rams as well. But those, I think, are the only 2 teams other than the 49ers that guy would have been all over.
Blast from the past. Obviously, when Ndamukong Suh left the Detroit Lions, left a bad taste in all the fans' mouth.
Most people
were like, good. Go out there to Miami, take your money, your career's about to die. And he went there, and eventually, most people felt like, you know what, he's going to go out there and his career's going to suffer. He's not going to make the postseason, and he's just going out there to get the money grab. And that's what it looks like happened. Miami Dolphins looked at his performance and said, we're not going to pay you anymore. We're not going to pay you the $8 million that you're due if you're going to be on the roster, so they cut him. And so you look at what he brings to the table and what he might have left. Would you be interested in a flyer on Ndamukong Suh if the money's right in terms of his bad attitude, his poor relations with the media? They all say, look, this dude's grumpy, not friendly with the media. Nobody wants to talk to him. And he would even do things as similar to like be posed, a request for an interview and just walk off. He would doing things that were a little bit rough with the media. He ended interviews on the radio. He ended things prematurely when he wasn't happy. He seems like a dude that's in it for the brand. And I don't want guys like that around. But in the spirit of knowing what the other team that Patricia and Bob Quinn worked for, they used to have a history of taking those kind of dudes and turning them into superstars. Do you take a flyer on Ndamukong Suh and maybe have some of that sprinkled magic on him and get something out of him to help bolster that defensive line?
I'm not opposed to it because you've seen what he brings to a defense. He can make a regular defensive line almost an elite unit. He is such an impactful player. Now, I don't think the Lions are going to have the money to be able to get a deal done with him because, like you said, the guy's in it for the bucks. That's what he wants. That's what he's there for. He is all about Ndamukong Suh and moving the Ndamukong Suh brand along. And I don't know if he wants to come back to Detroit, and I don't know if he'd be happy back here in Detroit. All that being said, what you said about Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia coming from New England and their ability to take guys who were maybe on the wrong side of the tracks or maybe had bad attitudes and kind of revamping them and getting more life out of them and getting them to follow what you want to do. I think winning brings all that along, and the Lions haven't won enough. And even though Bob Quinn has won, and even though Matt Patricia has won, and both those guys got rings for days, the Lions haven't won anything. And those two guys haven't won anything by themselves yet. They haven't done it themselves. They've all done it underneath the tutelage of Bill Belichick. I don't know if Ndamukong Suh comes here and he's all of a sudden a better guy, or he's a guy who seems like he gets it a little bit more. So I'm a little bit opposed to bringing him in, okay? And it's just because I remember him being a curmudgeon, and I remember him being just an overall ass. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He was an ass, but he was so talented on the field. It was like you could almost deal with his jerky behavior because he was so awesome on the field, and he was a game changer. He's a guy who demands 2 and 3 guys to sit there and line up on him. So you know what that does for the rest of it? I mean, do you remember when Ziggy Ansah was awesome? Do you? Do you remember why Ziggy Ansah just got franchised? It was because of that one year that he sat there and played with Ndamukong Suh, and Ndamukong Suh was taking on double and triple teams. So Ziggy Ansah could sit there and just get to quarterbacks all day long. Could you imagine that again? It'd be awesome. I don't think it's going to happen, though. And I don't think they have the money to do it. But I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm a little bit scared of it. Let's put it that way.
I was surveying USA Today, looking at some mock drafts. I came across Nate Davis's mock draft, and a lot of people right now are kind of, throwing out some ideas regarding what position the Lions are going to take. I know some people are throwing out that the Lions could take potentially a tight end. They could take a defensive back. They could take even a linebacker.
Take a tight end in the first round.
Right,
We've already done this.
That would
Eric
not go over well.
It's not working out.
Not go over well at all. But this latest mock draft from Nate Davis, he's got the Lions number 20 taken, running back Darius Geis from LSU. I look at it and I say, well, okay, you know what? If they did it, the first time I saw it, it kind of stung a little bit. I'm like, no, I don't want to address the running back position in the first round when there's some depth that you can maybe go out and get in the later rounds and pick up a running back, especially when you see potentially a Rashaan Evans linebacker there from Alabama. You see some impactful players that are there even at the cornerback position. You see some players around them, at 20 that you could say, you don't need to waste a first-round pick on a running back, but if the need is that desperate, if you can go out there and improve the offensive line, if you feel like having a coach that actually runs a proper scheme, if you can get, the likes of a TJ Lang and a Wagner stay on the field and be healthy, and you have the proper depth, then maybe, just maybe, a Darius Geis at number 20, not so bad.
With what they've done in free agency to this point, I'm not really opposed to them going out and getting Darius Geis because I don't think you have an impactful running back on this roster right now. You don't have anybody who's good enough. I think Darius Geis coming in immediately becomes your number 1 running back. He's heads and tails above everybody else on this roster right now. I'm not sure if he's going to pan out the way that we all want him to. I still have some questions there, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. The other thing I could see them doing, especially with Nate Davis's mock draft, is we've talked about defensive tackle. And if they are switching to a 3-4, and something that Matt Patricia really likes, and something that Matt Patricia I think values in players is versatility. And you've seen that with the 2 linebackers that he went out and got. Both those guys can play either in a 3-4 or a 4-3. They can do different things, They can put their hand in the dirt and they can rush the quarterback. They can play on the outside and play coverage. So they have flexibility and versatility in what they can do. Harrison Phillips out of Stanford, his report, he's strong as a bull. At the combine, he put up 42 on the bench. He's super smart. He graduated from Palo Alto with a double major, and he's super versatile in scheme. So he can play that 3-4 or he can play that 4-3, depending on what they want to do and depending on what Matt Patricia wants to roll out there that week. So again, versatility, that's something that Matt Patricia values. He's a real disruptive guy on the inside. So if you're going to go to that 3-4, this could be the guy you plug in your middle. He could be that guy who's super disruptive and can take on multiple blocks. So I wouldn't be opposed to them doing something like that either. It's going to be one of those things where we really need to see how the rest of free agency is going to play out here, because we still need help on the offensive line. I mean, you're missing a guard or you're missing a center, depending on what's going to end up happening there. You know what I'm saying? You need to address your lines. That's what it really comes down to, and that's the one thing I'm really underwhelmed with what Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia have done thus far in free agency. You've not addressed two key spots. And remember, when Matt Patricia came in, he said he wants to build his team from the inside out. So on both sides of the ball, you got to build your offensive and your defensive line, and you've not done that yet. Yeah, you've added some linebackers, and yeah, that makes your linebacking core that much stronger, because that has been a huge weakness for this team for a couple years now. But all that being said, you can do more to help your team by addressing your offensive and defensive lines, and it's the interior of those lines that need a lot of help right now, because you don't have a defensive tackle of note right now. I mean, yeah, A'Shawn Robinson, but if you go to a 3-4, he's going to be utilized as a D end. He's not going to be utilized as a guy to clog the middle and be a run stopper. And you've seen it when Haloti Ngata went down. When Haloti Ngata went down, those guys in the middle got pushed around. You need a guy who is big enough and strong enough to be able to stop the run and possibly take on a double team. And as good as A'Shawn Robinson is, he's not there yet. And you're not sure what Graham Glasgow is going to give you. He's going to give you guard play or if he's going to give you center play. So you've got to address that, which is why I ask you this question. What do you want the Lions to address going forward? Do you want them to go out and get a running back? Do you want them to go out and get an offensive tackle? Do you want them to go out and get a defensive tackle?
I want them to go out and get a quarterback that's going to win a bunch of playoff games. Oh, did I say that? Sorry. Wait, hold on. Let me be professional.
Who do you think that is? Kirk Cousins? Come on.
I told Jason in a bold prediction that if Kirk Cousins signed with Minnesota, no playoffs for the Lions. No playoffs for the next 3 years. I would say that, let me revise. I think I said no division titles for the Lions in the next 3 years. I like the fact that Kirk Cousins is going to a great defense and a great head coach, and they got some weapons there on offense that can do some damage. So I'm going to stick to it. I think that it's going to be tough with a new regime with what the Lions are doing, and you already got teams like Green Bay upgrading. You got Chicago with a young quarterback. I think Minnesota is the class of the division, so now they got Kirk Cousins, a really above-average game manager. So I'll stick to it. I think in the next 3 years, the Lions will win the division. In order to maybe...
I like your bold prediction.
Yes.
And I can see it has some validity, but answer the question.
Yes. In order to improve the Lions, what's the area that I would like? You improve the defense. I like the fact that the early signings are their own. Cornerback Nevin Lawson coming back. I like the evolution of what they're doing on the defense. They're building depth on the linebacking core, so continue to add depth is what I would like to do. Along that defensive line, you obviously have Kerry Hyder coming back, so continue to add pieces to that defense that could fit a 3-4 and that could add depth. Those are the things I'd like the Lions to continue to do in free agency in the draft.
I wasn't a huge fan of them bringing Nevin Lawson back.
Why?
I'm just underwhelmed by him. I get it, because he's familiar with whatever, he's familiar with everything that kind of goes on here. He's a guy who's versatile. He does a decent job playing in the nickel. I'm underwhelmed by him. I feel when I seen the signing, I was like, really? That's money you could have used for somebody else.
When you take a look at the current secondary, you got safeties of Quinn, Wilson, Diggs, and Killebrew, cornerback Slay, Lawson, Tabor, Agnew, and Diggs at the possible nickel position. I kind of like it. I like the way it's taking shape with a new defensive coordinator and a new guy that is going to emphasize the defense. I think Matt Patricia could take that mix and do something with it, maybe get some nice return on that. It's not too bad.
Do you think Tease Tabor rises to the occasion and maybe he is the guy who plays opposite of Darius Slay?
Could be. I think that he could take the next step. Obviously, you're counting on it. He did take strides. Obviously, he wasn't on the field as much as fans would like, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'm liking so far, like I said, what they're doing. I don't think there's really pause for concern at this point in time. Yeah, you could say it's underwhelming, but look, slow and steady wins the race. If you can continue to add talent and you coach them up properly, you remember what we said with Jim Caldwell, that he got the talent, but maybe they just peaked out at a point where maybe others could have gotten a little bit more out of the same guys. And now you got Matt Patricia, who everybody thinks is a great head coach, can scheme really well, and can also do some things at an advanced level. So I'm thinking that in that marriage with Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, that they, like I said, get the 3-star guy and coach him up to a 4-5, whereas maybe they felt like Jim Caldwell just couldn't raise these guys' level higher than what he could. So I'm hoping that Matt Patricia can do the job and can raise the level of expectations, but it's going to be overwhelmingly tough with what's going on, man. There's a lot of good general managers. There's a lot of good teams in the National Football League. Really, there are.
Just watching free agency, it's been absolutely insane. Just especially with what Cleveland has been doing. Cleveland's been trading guys away and acquiring guys.
I like what they did too, right?
Just going out and signing a ton of dudes. Like, Cleveland's going to be a totally different team next year.
Tyrod Taylor, Gordon, and then you got Landry.
And Carlos Hyde signed there. So it's going to be
quick turnaround.
Yeah,
losing 16 games in a row shocks the system.
Oh,
I think
my goodness.
They started taking some action.
Well, the thing is too, it was the perfect time to lose 16 games in a row because they had a wealth of draft picks.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying? What they had like 6 draft picks, and I think the top 40. I mean, that's insane. And like, I don't know if you can afford. Well, I guess you could. They have so much cap space. But I was gonna say signing all those guys would be difficult. But you don't want all those rookies on your team. Do you know what I'm saying? You like to have rookies, and you like to sprinkle them in with your veterans. So they need some veterans out there. So it's going to be a totally different team next year. A total different culture change, especially in Cleveland. I like what Cleveland's doing. Cleveland looks like they're going to be a dangerous team. Minnesota, I think, is the top of the mountain in the NFC North. This is probably the best quarterback division. The NFC North is probably the best quarterback division in all of football right now. With the addition of Kirk Cousins, of course, you got Aaron Rodgers, who's the class of that tier, and then you've got Matt Stafford, who I think is a pretty damn good quarterback. I think we all can agree. Matt Stafford's a pretty damn good quarterback, and his contract signing after what Kirk Cousins is getting looks really palpable and looks easily digestible compared to what everybody thought it was a few years ago. And then you've got Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, and he's a guy who's kind of coming along. At certain points last year, he showed some things, showed some sparks. I think they have now added a girth of talent over there in Chicago as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what these coaches can get out of these guys and get out of these teams and how it all kind of shakes out. But I think you're right. Minnesota is going to be the team to beat in the NFC North.
All right, time for our first break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about it. March Madness is here. There's a region in Detroit. There's a couple teams that I know you guys want to talk about that you're invested in. I'm interested in getting the Jock's bracket. What has he got going on in the Final Four? Who's he got maybe winning it all? What does he think of the selection show? What did he think of, the teams that have made it? Maybe some omissions, maybe some big omissions. Stay with us. Doc and Jock has a lot more left on this remaining podcast. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. Why do we use Podomatic as our host site? We've been recording podcasts since 2013, and we've recorded 800 to 900 weekly podcasts. You know how many issues we've had with Podomatic? 0. We're able to generate quality links. Adam and I, we have verbal warfare each and every week. We generate great quality links so that all of our supporters across the country and even overseas can enjoy the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So if you're looking to start a brand new podcast, you're listening, you're like, you know what? Those guys seem like they're having fun, gaining sponsors, gaining support. We see them all around on the internet, on all over social media. We want to grow and do similar things to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock, Vito, Jason, Jerry, Steve, all the hosts here on the network, we're going to recommend one host site alone, Podomatic.com. It's March, baby. You know what that means? One shining moment, baby. It's the time The tournament was set up. I know most people hated the way the selection show obviously went down. The ratings were in the tank. The move from CBS to TNT was terrible, and they deserved it. Basically, if you go from 6 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. and no brackets are released, good for you. Nobody deserves to watch that garbage. It got universally panned and well-deserved. It should have. It was a disgusting way of doing it when in the past you have a product that's ready to go. You have a bracket, you got information, give the people what they want, give the people the bracket. Nobody cares about who's in alphabetically. Nobody cares about anything that you did that first segment. If you keep doing it that way, then you'll get under a 1 share. This year, I think the rating was like a 1.3 on the internet for the selection show. How do you mess up the selection show? Seriously, boss? I mean, literally, I couldn't believe that's how they did it. And it kind of kicked off the tournament for me in a sour note. But in the end, for me, as I was watching, tweeting nasty things to the selection committee saying, good, can somebody leak this bracket? It popped up, and Andrea was taking a nap, and I woke her up, and she was like, what's wrong? What happened? I saw it. In Detroit, Little Caesars Arena, it's Michigan State. And I'm like, yeah, baby, that's what it needs to be. That's the draw. The main event is in town, and send Michigan off to Kansas. Their fans will travel. They got the money. Let them spend it. Michigan State fans will go down to Little Caesars Arena and watch them come out of the region there. They'll win the first 2 games, no problems. And then the main event will start next week, I think, out in Boston. It'll be Michigan State versus Duke, and that's when the tournament will begin. But I'm happy with the bracket. Okay, look, you can pick apart, the teams that got in. You could say, yeah, this team shouldn't have got in, and this team. That's what a tournament committee is designed to do. Kind of formulate a tournament that could potentially, create some havoc, that could create some interest. And sometimes there are going to be teams that are deserving, that have a lot of wins, like a Middle Tennessee State, that just don't make it. They are what's called a bubble team. And when you have bad losses at certain times in a year and you're a mid-major school and you're not one of the big dogs, remember last year, there was a little bit of talk of, well, maybe should Michigan State not make the tournament with like 20, 21 wins? They were kind of struggling, and so they made it in based on reputation. Well, teams like Middle Tennessee State don't have that. Yeah, they had a big win in the tournament, but hey, if you want to win, you perform in the conference tournament and you play well. But first and foremost, obviously looking at what's going down in the state of Michigan. What do you think so far of the bracket and how it came out? Do you feel like the committee did a decent job in the way they set up this tournament in your eyes?
Overall, I don't really have an issue with how the teams that got in. I don't really feel like there's a glaring issue. Like you said, if you were a bubble team, you're a bubble team, and sometimes your bubble gets bursted, and sometimes you get in.
Too bad, so sad. That's the nature of the beast.
Right. So I didn't really have an issue with that. Getting back to your Michigan State point, I do feel like Michigan State was gift wrapped their spot here in the Midwest.
Yeah, but in return for that, they got hammered in their bracket. Holy cow!
Really? With what? Bucknell?
No, in terms of look,
TCU?
Most people expect Michigan
maybe
State
Arizona State
to get to the Sweet 16, but then is Duke, Kansas.
Well, I get that. I get that, right? So if you get out of your first 2, you're going to get. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
You're going to get out of your first 2 weeks or your first 2 games.
Makes it a little easier. Yeah,
all right?
of
So
course.
you get into the second week. So you got to go sit there and you got to take on Duke. Okay, cool. It's not anybody else's fault that Michigan State can't figure out Duke in
the zone.
Coach K has Izzo's number. He's 10-1. Come on. It's not anybody's fault there. Figure it out. If you're such a great team, go do your job. All right?
I'd like to see Michigan and Duke in a tournament for once.
On Michigan's side, though, Michigan totally got boned on this. Totally got boned. So you're going to go against Montana, who's got a pretty decent defense, okay? After you survive Montana, you then are going to have either Houston or San Diego State. It'll probably be Houston. Houston, another team that has a really good defense and that you might not get by. And then, after all that, you're probably going to play North Carolina. So you got your Duke, I got my North Carolina. And then if you get by North Carolina, you're going to have your pick of probably Gonzaga or Xavier. And hey, good luck with that. Good luck with that. If Michigan State can get by Duke, you're in. If Michigan can get past Houston, good luck. Good luck. For a team who got so hot at the end of the year and played really well during the year, I mean, they sat there and they beat Michigan State twice. They beat Purdue once, but they sat there and had Purdue on the ropes and they got jobbed by a referee. They beat Ohio State. They sat there and they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. And then they get this draw right here. You could make a case that this team would have been better suited sitting there coming out of the South, possibly playing against the number 1 overall seed, Virginia, when they sat there and they got to the Elite Eight.
Really? You're the only person I've seen anywhere that's complained about Michigan.
I'm totally upset by it.
Really?
Totally upset
You're the
by it.
only person I've seen complain. You got your panties in a bunch or something? What's going on? Everyone's like,
I don't
people
think-
got Michigan in the Final Four.
Who?
I do.
How?
I'll tell you right now.
Do you not believe in North Carolina? Do you think North Carolina is going to roll over? Do you realize North Carolina has senior leadership on that team? Do you realize North Carolina has made it to the Final Four, the past 2 years?
I got Michigan, North Carolina. I got Michigan advancing to play Xavier and Michigan defeating Xavier.
Beating Xavier?
Yep.
Xavier's been one of the best teams all year.
Michigan plays defense and shoots lights out. They might be the team of destiny.
I want whatever you're smoking. Let me have some of it, honestly. Let me get whatever it is that you're smoking.
Right now, you're telling me in your bracket you don't have
Insane.
Michigan in the Final Four?
No, I haven't even filled out my bracket yet. But I did have to do one for work because my boss was like, I don't know anything about sports. Can you do this for me? I said, yeah, sure. So I got to the Michigan North Carolina game, and I was like, man, I really want to pick Michigan here. But my heart, my brain's telling me North Carolina, my heart's telling me Michigan. I went with the heart, and then I got to Xavier, and Xavier beat them.
Okay.
So I just don't think Michigan. Look, I don't know. Do you have Michigan State winning at all?
No, I do not.
What do you have Michigan State losing to Duke?
Okay, I'm going back and forth.
This is what happens, right? You get so scarred by your team,
Yeah.
and it ruins it doesn't ruin your passion, but it sets there and it damages you because you can't take the blinders off. Like I see everything with the maze of blue glasses, and I just see like North Carolina. I'm like, oh my god, we can't beat them. Just like you probably sit there and you wear your green and white glasses, and you're like, oh my god, Duke, we can't beat them.
I got, in an official bracket, I got Michigan State advancing and losing to Kansas. But if there's a scenario, we're all assuming it's Michigan State Duke, I'm hoping, and then when the matchup hopefully happens on Sunday, I'm hoping it's going to be Duke versus Oklahoma, and Oklahoma comes away with the upset. And so in a couple of brackets, I could have it also.
Somebody's going to do the heavy lifting for you.
I want the heavy lifting, baby. I don't want to play Duke. I want to avoid Duke because I've asked a lot of pundits, and I've on some interviews I've said, look, do you want to play Duke as a Michigan State fan? And some people are like, yeah, if you want to, get over the hump and you want to advance, you want to play the best. I'm like, hell no.
Were you talking to Justin Rose?
I'm like, hell no. I don't want to play Duke.
One.
Yeah, I don't want to play Duke at all. So I want Oklahoma to do the heavy lifting, take out Duke for us, and then potentially Michigan State can advance. But right now, as it stands, my Final Four is Villanova, Kansas, Virginia, and Michigan. And then to win it all, I got Villanova. I think just by looking at who's the best team in the tournament, I like the way Villanova plays. I think they got excellent guard play, a point guard that may be a little bit underrated nationally. And I like the way that Villanova could work their way through this tournament. So in my official bracket so far, I got till Thursday to change it up, tweak it here and there. Maybe if I read anything that I like, I'll insert Michigan State as a victor over Kansas. And it would be great if it was Michigan State in the Finals Four at all.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It would be great.
I seen Jarvis' bracket, and I was like, what is he on?
But so does Jay Billis. Jay Billis has Michigan and Michigan State in the Final Four. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But when you look at it in terms of teams outside of Michigan, I like the way Nova's playing. I got them as the overall champion right now.
When I sat down and did my one for work, I had Villanova. I had Villanova. I had Duke. I had Xavier, and I had Virginia, with the finals being Virginia versus Villanova, and I had Villanova winning it all. So, look, I think Virginia's a very good team. They deserve to be the number one overall seed. I don't like their coach. I think their coach has exceptional talent, and he gets beat all the time. There are times where Michigan State teams, and for some reason Michigan State always has Virginia's number. So if they do make it to the championship game, I would put all my money on Michigan State winning that game because Tom Izzo has Virginia's number all day long. And there will be undermanned Michigan State teams that will sit there and they will destroy Virginia. It just happens. I don't like their coach. I don't trust it. I think Villanova, on the other hand, I think they have a really good coach. They're a team that can score a lot. Like you said, really good guard play. Defense could be better. But look, this is a team that when it comes time for crunch time, they know how to win. And it wasn't just a few years ago Villanova won the NCAA tournament. Wasn't just a few short years ago. So there's some of that still on this team. So they know how to get it done. They know how to win. They know what this tournament consists of.
In looking at your frustration, do you just feel like Michigan got boned by like a lack of respect due to the fact that they're not playing in Detroit? Because look, you saw
it's not even so much the playing in Detroit.
There was a Hitachi Classic where Michigan played Detroit Mercy. Michigan didn't draw. It was Michigan State versus Oakland, and by far it is the record. It still stands at LCA, the most attended sports event, not concert, the most attended sporting event so far in the record of Little Caesars Arena was Michigan State v. Oakland. They packed the place, and it was a great vibe. Michigan versus Detroit Mercy was dead.
UAD fans don't travel.
They weren't expecting
They don't travel to Callahan Hall.
Yeah, but in terms of that, you weren't expecting Detroit Mercy fans to travel. You were expecting the Michigan fans to show up. Of course. So,
but Michigan fans can't pack the whole arena, can they? I mean, you expect.
There weren't 4,000 people in the entire building.
Well, I get it.
So you're expecting.
My point is mute. I get it.
Exactly. You're expecting at least 10, half the building.
I think that played a part.
Yes.
Okay.
They don't draw.
Right. I think that played a part. I think what the committee tried to do, though, is they tried to hook Michigan State up because they won the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten regular season, and Michigan State. Look, they only lost 4 games. Only lost 4 games all year long, right? And those were against tougher schools. So they lost to good teams. So I get it, right? So the committee's going to try to hook them up. Like you said, they draw at LCA.
And here's another thing,
too,
that I heard.
Michigan State will go to Detroit. But placing Michigan as a 3 seed, I think they were trying to help Michigan along. Well, let's put them as a 3 seed. You could have just as easily put them as a 3 or a 4 seed and put them in the South Division, and it would have made much more sense. Would have made so much more sense. I would much rather take Michigan playing Wright State or Michigan playing Buffalo. I'd probably prefer them playing Wright State because they'd be on the bottom part of that bracket, and then to get to the Elite Eight, they'd have to play Virginia.
And so,
or to get to the Final Four, they have to play Virginia.
Here's another point that people make as well with Michigan State is they're a national brand as well. So when you put Michigan State in the tournament and you put them in Detroit, then the media requests go up. And then when you have more media in the house, you get more exposure to the Detroit arena, to the Detroit region. So that's why as well. They feel like if Michigan State's in the building, then more media requests are going to fill up and you're going to have more people wanting attention.
Can't you make that same argument for Michigan?
I don't think so. I think that Michigan State is a national brand because look, remember, when these brackets came out early on, ESPN, Fox Sports, a lot of national media have Michigan State winning it all. They still are not on the train of saying, oh, why are you questioning Michigan State? They're not doubting. They're not as critical as even the local media are. A lot of ESPN analysts have Michigan State winning the entire bracket.
I don't understand. I don't get that.
National respect. I think Tom Izzo is a guy that still, even though there's been some tough losses and even though there's some criticism regarding the losses to Michigan, nationally has a ton of respect.
But can't you say the same thing about a Jay Wright who coaches Villanova?
Yeah.
Can't you say that about a bunch of other coaches? I mean, John Beilein, who you can't even scrutinize the guy. Tom Izzo has had nothing but a season of scrutiny underneath his belt.
But you look at national results in the tournament, you got Michigan State, a lot of Final Fours. Michigan is the flavor of the month.
Oh, okay. Middle Tennessee. I'll leave it at that. Middle Tennessee for you.
Yeah.
I want to kick you in the nuts. Hey, that was for a championship.
That's right.
And all those guys, they were all on some other mischief there. So that should be Michigan's banner.
So who do you got winning it all? Who do you think is the biggest favorite to take it down? I got Villanova so far.
I think Villanova.
Villanova. Do you give Michigan a chance to win it all? If they get hot, you got Mo Wagner, you got a guy in Teskey and Poole, you got some young talent, and I think you're discounting when you look at Michigan in terms of what's happened. They got significantly better. That's not the same team that played North Carolina.
No. The
defense is outstanding.
Yes, I think this team has gotten way better as the season has gone along, and I do give them a shot. The thing is, I just don't know. Again, they're going to have to get hot, right? This is a jump shooting team, a team that relies still on the three-pointer, but they also have worked in having really good defense. So I think they've got the leadership on this team to where they can go deep in this tournament. I think they also have guys who can hit big shots and sit there and work the ball around the perimeter. And then you've got guys like Mo Wagner, Teskey, who you can work the ball inside and they can get the ball outside. So I think they have a shot. I just don't know if they've got it in them to go on a run that they're going to have to go on.
And I think you're disappointed, too, that Michigan plays at 10 o'clock and your old ass got to drink some coffee.
Right, you know what I'm saying? I'm already on my 5th cup of coffee today, and it's like noon. But
I'm on my 3rd, right?
It's so bad. I was so upset. I was like, really? That late? Like, what? Who does that?
Yeah.
But, seriously, so for Michigan to get to the Final Four, you're probably going to have to go through North Carolina. Once you get to North Carolina, you're going to have to go through Xavier. And look, I get it, right? Xavier... I think Xavier's a good team. I can understand how people will discount them. I think Xavier's a really good team. There's a reason why they're a number 1 seed. All right. And then after you get through them, you got to go through Virginia, who's the number 1 overall seed, just to play the likes of maybe a Villanova, maybe a Michigan State, maybe a Kansas, maybe a Duke. You know, seriously? Like, I just named like 6 really good teams, and you're going to have to play at least 4 of them. It's okay. Cool.
Right.
Whatever.
I can't wait to talk about Michigan State, hopefully, versus Duke. I know it's probably wishful thinking to think that Oklahoma can do the job, but if you can, Oklahoma, I'm rooting for you. I'll be rooting hard Try and take out Duke for us so that we can get that easy path.
Doesn't Oklahoma have Trae Young?
Yeah, they do. Oh, man, that dude just loves to shoot.
That's all he does is shoot.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Get hot versus Duke, man. Upset City.
That'd be cool, right? So if Oklahoma gets hot, does the heavy lifting for you, Duke goes down, you then have to play Oklahoma. Now, let's see, how does this work now? So Oklahoma gets hot, beats
play Duke, and then play State, and then lose.
So then you got to play Michigan State, not the next day, but the day after. So, yeah, and look, Michigan State has always been awesome on the second day instead of the first day, Middle Tennessee. Yeah, I could totally see that happening, and I could see you getting to the Final Four then, because I think Michigan State could beat Kansas. Again, not a ton of heavy lifting there for Michigan State. You just got to hope Duke doesn't get there. That's all you're doing. You're just hoping for somebody to do your heavy lifting. See, this is what I'm talking about.
No problem at all.
BS.
Final timeout. We'll come back. We got to talk about the Pistons. They were absolutely embarrassed in Utah, and I think it was a culmination of what we've watched with Stan Van Gundy. I think if you want to encapsulate two teams that are going in totally opposite directions, Utah's doing one thing, and the Detroit Pistons are doing another, and it culminated in a matchup. We'll talk about the ramifications of what the hell we saw, and we'll talk about Tom Gores showing up at Little Caesars Arena and the interviews that he gave. Some people are still kind of, poo-pooing around it, but we don't have to worry about it. We'll say what we think regarding Tom Gores, his ownership. We'll talk about what the hell these Detroit Pistons have looked like in these last couple weeks and what should happen going forward. Stay with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thanks again, everybody, for your continued support. Detroit Sports Podcast, located wherever you can find podcasts. The free and easy way to support us, visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can take care of all your online shopping needs, buy Detroit sports tickets. You can check out all the coverage that Detroit Sports Podcast is going to have in the coming weeks. We greatly appreciate all your support. We greatly appreciate those of you that are telling your friends, downloading, subscribing, reviewing us on iTunes is greatly appreciated. The free and easy way to keep the microphones hot, the studio lights on here in our Sterling Heights studio. Visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You know who don't want none? The Detroit Pistons. They got an ass whooping at the hands of the Utah Jazz. You check out any of that nonsense?
Or the Piston fans.
Yeah.
Dude, let me read you a tweet here. Or not a tweet, a text message I woke up to from my cousin this morning. This was so funny. Let's see. He's telling me about his crazy ex-girlfriend. Hold on. He just goes off. He's hilarious. So this is what I wake up to in the morning. He sent this to me at like 11. My old ass was in bed. He says, bro, Henry Ellenson on the Pistons is perhaps the worst player ever. He can barely run without falling, and he plays like that goofy kid who has no clue what he's doing and doubles dribbles all the time and moves too fast for himself and then turns the ball over. And I was like,
hey,
that's a pretty good assessment.
Is your cousin cool with you sending that? Screenshot it and send it to us. That's funny.
I could, yeah.
Yeah, screen grab it and tweet it to me and say, this is the review from family. It's funny. I think it's funny.
I will. I'll send
because
it to you.
that's what it is.
That's exactly it.
I mean, you got Henry Ellenson, Luke Kennard, Stanley Johnson. They're playing against the Utah Jazz, and it was a complete mismatch. You got blown up by 31, and Donovan Mitchell played okay. You had, I don't know who that giant was for Utah, but holy cow, he made Andre Drummond look small. And you see Utah, they draft, scout, and perform well on the court, and you got the Pistons, and it's just complete opposite. And that's what happens when things go astray. For whatever reason, Stan Van gets a lot of respect across the NBA, but in terms of here in Detroit, it's just been an absolute failure. And I think that game probably cemented the legacy of Stan Van Gundy in terms of what you saw. Two teams heading in opposite directions. I mean, I saw basically 3 minutes of the game, and I saw Blake Griffin in a sequence try to pass the ball to Kennard and went out of bounds. And then I see, Utah run their offense flawlessly, making threes. I seen, a pass play to this giant center, and he just dunked all over Andre Drummond. The Pistons parted like the Red Sea. They don't play any defense. Didn't see that much intensity. And by that point, they're already down by 30. So I'm like, okay. 3 minutes of my time wasted, click. And Andrew's like, oh my God, they're that bad. And then you got Stan Van in his suit. He just looks awkward and it doesn't look right in it. And it's not cool. The Pistons' performance as of late isn't right. And this mix of talent, unfortunately, when you evaluate it, how are you going to get that much better with Reggie Jackson? Really? Is that what you're expecting? Because of the salary cap ramifications of what you did, you've hamstrung your team. So you're going to need role players like a Tolliver, like a Reggie Bullock. You're going to need that going forward. And does anybody really trust Stan Van to go out there and get those pieces? No. The season's been an absolute abysmal failure. Great, you decided to tank if you want to go that route and say, oh, the Pistons are losing. Oh, guess what? If you don't win the lottery and get in the top 3 or 4, that pick's gone. So you, in essence, don't get a chance to improve your team. You got to go out and get free agents that either, one, you got to overpay to make even an offer, or two, you got to go out and get role players. And do you really, okay, you got Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. It's not good enough.
No.
That's not anywhere near good enough. And I think what people are recognizing is Pistons, DOA, dead on arrival. Dead organization right now.
The worst part is you see a guy like Donovan Mitchell who just runs a train on you and ends up hitting 3-pointers from almost 40 feet out. Mind-blowing, right? Because you could have had that guy. He could have been on this team. I was going to watch this game. I got home a little bit late last night. I was going to watch it. And I got the ESPN update on my phone. 42-21, and I was like, you know what? I'm good. The game's already over.
Game's over.
In the first quarter. How do you give up 42 points in the first quarter?
You don't play defense.
You don't play any defense. Exactly. And we talked about it before. All defense is effort. That's all it is. It's effort and trying to be in the right place at the right time and making a move on a guy. So everybody's standing around like a damn turnstile, and you've got guys blowing by you, going to the rack, and you're just there like, okay, cool. Or not crashing down on the boards to get the ball when it comes off the rim. Unbelievable. It's pitiful.
That's
absolutely
it.
pitiful.
We're only going to devote 5 more minutes to this because of the fact that, you know what, it's an abysmal failure, and we don't devote time to failures here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. It's about winning, baby. It's about effort. And Tom Gores came to town, and he was peppered by the media. He was asked, look, what do you think about SVG? And the comments that came out in terms of what he said at the press conference, either he's really good at PR or he's really bad at knowing what's going on with the Pistons, because he's like, yeah, I'm happy with the Pistons. We got Blake Griffin. Dude, do you understand basketball? Do you understand that you are committing huge money for a guy that you think is a supposed draw that's not? He hasn't drawn. I mean, yeah, the attendance has gone up, but to the point where you don't get embarrassed, where you don't need seat covers? No. And here's the thing. Winning brings the fans. That's all you got to say is we want to bring a winning product, and you don't bring a winning product by drafting guys that can't play right away. Donovan is it's a new era in hockey and basketball. Young cats can play at 20 years old. Young cats can shoot lights out. You can find a superstar early. Donovan Mitchell, wouldn't you classify as a superstar?
Yeah, absolutely.
Devin Booker, superstar. Stanley Johnson, Luke Kennard, not superstars. And so they found their way to Detroit, and unfortunately, it's really bad. And then you got your owner, who is either similar to the Doc and wants a lot of attention, or is just happy that he's got $1 billion and owns a team, and he's happy that he turned his $300 million investment into $1 billion investment, and he just doesn't care. Because of the fact that when he shows up, the attention's about him, and it's not in a positive light. Check this out. He was interviewed, Jennifer Hammond, great reporter at Fox 2. She goes right up to him, asks him some questions. Just look at the way he talks. Look at his tone, and we'll talk about it next. Listen to this clip from Tom Gores. This is via Jennifer Hammond's Twitter page.
What do you feel right now about this season? Are you disappointed?
Oh, disappointed. Not angry. No.
Not angry? Okay.
I would be angry if they weren't working hard. But they're working hard.
He's swaying left and right.
I can't be angry about that. Disappointed? Yeah, for sure.
Do you like the trade with Blake Griffin?
Oh, yeah. We got a superstar. Whatever happens this season happens. We got a superstar. And he's a leader.
Are you confident to build this thing around Andre and Blake?
Oh, yeah.
How much will your
Dude, you know what the best part of that whole sound clip was?
Oh, yeah, I'm confident, baby.
Best part of that whole sound clip was the music in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Dude, Tom Gores is an idiot. Like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, he is so detached from that product that is on that court, he has no idea what's going on. Did you hear him? Did you hear the words that came out of his mouth? He said, I'm okay with it. I'm good with everything. We've got a superstar. You're an idiot because Blake Griffin is not a superstar. He's a guy who's now on the decline, and it's been proven that it's not working with him here, okay? So bringing Reggie Jackson back into the fold to mix him and pair him with Andre Drummond and Blake isn't going to solve anything. You have no money to go out and get anybody here. You have no monies, no dollar bills, nothing, okay? So you can't bring anybody in. All you can do is try to find role players. Like you said, here's the thing. Nobody's going to want to come here because you can't pay them. You can't even draft a guy. You don't have any draft picks. So how are you going to draft a guy to bring somebody in here who's going to make an impact? The team that you have right now, you're going to be stuck with for at least the next 2 seasons. So good luck with all that.
No. What do you think about Tom Gores as an owner? Do you think he's totally clueless?
Yes, absolutely.
Totally clueless.
Look, this is the thing. Tom Gores uses the Detroit Pistons as his little plaything, right? He goes to the games, gets hammered, goes on the court. He's drunk. He's trying to throw T-shirts, can't get them past his own shoes, right? He's got that crazy hair that's just kind of blowing everywhere. And he just uses it to bring, I don't know, other business investors in, or he uses it to get loaded and try to look like he's having a good time. He's an idiot. He's a total boob. He doesn't understand basketball. And for him to sit there and go on record and say, hey, I like Stan. I like what Stan's doing. I like the game plan. What is the game plan? Does anybody know what the game plan is? Because ever since Stan Van Gundy's been here, he's always said it's to get to the playoffs. Okay, cool, bro. Getting to the playoffs. I don't know about you. I don't feel like getting to the playoffs as an 8 seed or a 7 seed, even a 6 seed and getting wrecked. I'm about winning championships. It should be about winning championships. Devising a plan, putting all your ducks in a row, addressing your plan, and then going out and winning a championship. Again, look at Philadelphia. Look at what the 76ers have done. They said, hey, we're going to tank. We're going to tank and we're going to suck. But you got to trust in the plan. Trust in the game plan. And look at those guys. They've got superstars on their team. Superstars. Blake Griffin isn't even a star anymore. He's a guy. He's a dude who's here, who's got to play with Andre, who likes to go hang out with chicks from Nickelodeon because he's a giant retarded child himself. And then you got to deal with Reggie Jackson and his bum knee. Get the hell out of here. There is nothing good on this team. It's awful. It's abysmal. It needs to be blown up. And it all lays at the feet of Stan Van Gundy and that idiot Tom Gores. Tom Gores empowers Stan Van Gundy to go and be the boner jam that he is every single day. And look, if Tom Gores was clued in on what the hell was going on, he would never. I like how you just sat there and you pulled the string and you just sit back and you just watch me go. I love it. It's great. If you guys were here right now, you just see him. He's got his head down. He's just tweeting. He's just doing whatever he's doing. It's great. He's just like, go ahead. You take it away. I know you're going to rant. I know you're going to get out of your system. Just do what you got to do. Now, if Tom Gores was actually clued into what the hell was going on with this organization, he would never in a million years allow Stan Van Gundy to go ahead and trade his draft picks, trade everything he's got to go get a guy like Blake Griffin. If he understood what was going on with the basketball landscape, he wouldn't have allowed Stan Van Gundy to do that. Even if Stan Van Gundy came to him with a magnificent PowerPoint and sat there and showed him, hey, if we bring this guy in and we do this, ticket sales are going to go up because we're going to start to win and this is going to work and this is going to be great. We're going to sell more popcorn and we're going to sell more beer. You like beer. You showed up at the games. You're all liquored up all the time. It's great. And Tom Gores is like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Let's do that. No. Horrible idea. This is dumb. This is awful. Okay? You sat there, you traded away 2 commodities and Tobias Harris and Avery Bradley, guys who could have sat there and possibly have fetched you first-round draft picks. Both of them, not together, but individual. So that could have been two first-round draft picks for you. 2 of them. So now you pair that with the one that you have, that's 3 new pieces you could have had on this team. You could have packaged some of those draft picks and moved up. You could have got a guy like Trey Young who's coming out, who looks to be a star. You could have had your Donovan Mitchell. You could have had your Devin Booker. You could have had your guy. So good job, bro. Good job.
That's it. Drop the mic. That's it. The Pistons are lost, and it's going to be hard to rebuild. I think when Tom Gores actually does have a talk with SVG, you got to cut the cord. Put whatever you're on down and be serious and walk into the room after the season. Let everybody know that, look, SVG's era is over. We got to rebuild this thing, and it starts at the top. Sorry to Jeff Bauer. Sorry to SVG. Sorry to that staff, but it's time. Cut the cord, end this nonsense. It ain't working. This kind of philosophy that SVG has brought to the table has turned everybody off, and nobody in their right mind is liking it, and I think you're risking losing a lot of fans going forward. You know, I don't even know how many Pistons fans, besides the diehards, they even have left. It's really bad. So that's it. The Pistons, their season's a wrap, and in order to get Blake Griffin, you probably mortgage the future in the next 2 or 3 years. While it's great, you got a guy that can drop you 20 points. Collectively, though, you might have ruined the chance for the Pistons to have success in the long term. It's not a good look.
It's so frustrating because at this point and at this stage of the game, the answer's simple. It's right there in front of you.
Fire SVG.
You just gotta be clued in. You gotta pay attention, and you've got to want to win. And I don't feel like anybody who's in charge over there really understands that and really gets it.
Great,
Sorry I
great
lost it, man.
podcast recording, sir. I enjoyed the time. Always enjoy the passion. You can follow Adam Straczynski on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast, the most interactive Detroit sports Twitter page. We greatly appreciate your support, and because of it, we're able to have great opportunities to cover great events, and we're able to get down to these arenas, have a good time, provide you with Detroit sports, entertainment, fun, and most important to us, a great verbal discourse back and forth, and we get great sports debates. We love it. For the Jock, Adam Straczynski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. You've listened to episode 240 of the Doc and Jock podcast.
Go Pistons, please lose. Same thing at the Wings.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things